Hey, Redheads and everyone else listening, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Adrian. Today we are talking about the history of redheads.
Of being a redhead.
There's so much history to red hair. So our guest is really cool. She's Jacky Colliss Harvey, and she is the author of Red, A History of the Redhead and My Life as a Redhead, a journal. And she's going to come on, give us a history of people who have had red hair, about redheads across the world, and give us an insight into things that we may not even know about.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this topic because I saw her book come out.
We'll put her book in the podcast notes.
Definitely.
So you can see the cover. It's basically just a beautiful woman with red hair. And
it is. It's I remember when the book came out and I thought, oh my God, what a cool thing, because it's a topic that we've talked about on our platform, but to go into detail and talk about the science, the religion, the sexuality, the literature, art, everything having to do with a redhead, having it all in one book, I think is pretty cool. And when we did a poll on our Instagram story a couple months ago asking about what topics you'd want us to cover for season 2, a lot of redheads were saying, can we talk about the history about a redhead or the redhead background, where a red hair came from, really dive in, because I think when you think about a redhead back in the day, I think of Queen Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
And I think Henry VIII had red hair, I'm pretty sure. And then you hear all these myths about the witchcraft and
persecution and like they got like burned at the stake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating too, and we'll dive into this with Jacky, but you know, there's the most redheads are in Scotland. Why did that happen? If someone asked me that, I would be like, I don't know. They just settled there. But really going into it, and A History of the Redhead, it traces back to 50,000 years. And I think that's pretty cool because that shows that red hair has been around for so long. So we're super excited to have Jacky Colliss Harvey on. She studied English at Cambridge University and works in museum publishing and is a commentator and a reviewer who speaks on the arts and their relation to popular culture. And now she splits her time between New York and London. So let's call her up. Guess what, Redheads? The H2 Bar Box is now offering a deluxe version of the Beauty Box sent out 4 times a year, in addition to the monthly box. You now have 2 options for enjoying the beauty subscription box for redheads. The monthly box is worth $80 plus, and the deluxe quarterly box is worth $250 plus.
Each and every product is redhead friendly approved. Head to h2barbox.com to subscribe and use code podcast to receive 20% off.
Hi, Jacky. This is Stephanie and Adrian Vendetti.
Hello, you two. How lovely to be speaking to you.
It's so wonderful to speak to you, too. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right into it. So, Red, A History of the Redhead, tells the history of red hair throughout the ages. It traces back 50,000 years and dives into science, religion, feminism, and sexuality, literature, and art. And the book begins with how the redhead gene made its way out of Africa. Tell us a little bit more about the book and all the fascinating things about redheads. I mean, I know that's such a general question. And then talk to us about how you started to write this amazing book.
I will be delighted to. You're right. It is. The whole redhead story is absolutely fascinating. One of the best things about it is the way that the science of red hair and the genetics of red hair has shaped cultural expectations and reactions to red hair. It's and particularly how it has gendered the subject, so that to be a female redhead is one thing,
right.
To be a male redhead is something very, very different.
Interesting.
And I started writing the book really because I'm a redhead myself. And I used to work in publishing before I became a full-time writer. And I was listening to a fellow publisher present a series of books on popular science. And it suddenly occurred to me that there was no book explaining the science behind being a redhead. So I set myself to investigate this, and within about a week I had filled 3 notebooks, and I was astonished myself at the story that was emerging.
Right.
But to go back to the business of the early human diaspora, it surprises an enormous number of people that actually, like every other gene we carry with us today, the redhead gene came with us as we all left Africa.
Okay.
It manifested itself about 60,000 or 50 to 60,000 years ago, by which point the population who became the early modern humans and all of us had got as far as the grasslands of Central Asia and no further. And my theory that I put forward in the book is that some of those people turned left and became the tribes around the Black Sea, who in the time of the Greeks and Romans were noted as having a lot of redheads. And some might have turned right and ended up in what is now China and some of the territories around China's western border, where you get these extraordinary red-headed mummies, and they might have been the origins of some of the redheads that you find in Islamic culture as well.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. So then, I guess, so when we think about where all the redheads are, like, they're mainly in Scotland.
There's a large percentage.
There's a large
Scots.
percentage in
And
Scotland,
then other places,
and
yeah.
other places in the Netherlands, and of course, like Ireland. How did they get there?
This was one of the most astonishing things to me. There is this incredible phenomenon among human populations called genetic drift.
Okay.
And it is the means by which a rare characteristic, such as red hair, which is determined by a recessive gene, so you only become a redhead if you're carrying 2 of the magic recessive genes. It's a means by which that characteristic becomes fixed within any population that is that little bit removed from the enormous human ebb and flow of different tribes and different cultures and different populations, which is half the story as to why there are redheads in Ireland and Scotland, because they're on the fringes of Europe. The other half of the story is, of course, that if you have red hair, it's an indicator that your system is going to be very much better at synthesizing vitamin D from whatever sunlight is available than if your skin was darker. In this, it's the pale skin here, which is the really interesting genetic determining characteristic. And that obviously gives you, if you're a redhead with pale skin in Northern Europe, a little bit of a genetic advantage over those around you.
Wow. Okay.
So that has also helped. Yeah. That has also helped red hair to spread through the population because, for centuries before there were antibiotics or anything like that, if your vitamin D levels were a little bit higher than those of the people beside you, your immune system was a little bit stronger as well. And that would have meant that you were less susceptible to die of the plague or TB or smallpox or any of those other things that would have carried other people off by the spore. And if you're a woman, vitamin D also gives you a nice strong pelvis for carrying babies and giving birth to babies, which is another little advantage that red hair has conferred on us.
Wow, that is fascinating.
I know it is.
So basically, yeah, because I was thinking about Queen Elizabeth, who was in like the 1500s, early 1600s.
Yes.
And she lived to like 70 years old. That's a long time back then.
That was a long time. Great point.
It is.
It wasn't like now someone passes away at 70. You're like, oh, they're young, you know. But back then, that was a very long life. So maybe she had an advantage.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's really cool.
You're absolutely right. And, even in her lifetime, her longevity was remarked upon.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so fascinating. The only reason I know these statistics is because I was in London last month and we did like a whole tour of, Kensington Palace, and I read about all of the history, and I was so interested in everything. And there are a lot of redheads. I noticed so many redheads in London, and I noticed so many redheads throughout history in London. I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah. we're becoming a much more noticeable minority than we were, I think.
I think so too. So we were thinking about your process of writing the book and how there must have been a lot of surprises along the way, like with the information that you just shared. But what was the most surprising to you throughout the journey of writing it?
It would be difficult to choose one thing. There were a couple of facts I uncovered that really resounded with me. One is that if you are a redhead, very often your pale skin will have a different pH, a different acid balance to that of somebody who isn't a redhead, which will mean that scents and aftershaves are going to smell different on you from the way they smell on other people.
Oh, wow.
So you have to choose your scents and any scented moisturizers or anything like that you use with great care. In fact, this was such a thing that a perfumier called Jean Patou in the 1920s made a scent especially for redheads.
No way.
Which he called Adieu Sagesse. Yeah, exactly. It's very difficult to find these days, but you can still find it. And the name Adieu Sagesse is celebrates throwing caution to the winds, which is a very good redhead characteristic, I think. Wow. And the other thing that really fascinated me was the fact that redheads feel pain, particularly thermal pain, much more acutely than people whose hair is not red. And it's something that every redhead should be aware of, particularly when they go to the dentist, because far too many dentists don't know this. And you will need at least a third as much anesthesia to knock you out as any non-redhead would need.
Yeah, that is fascinating, isn't it? We did a whole podcast on that because we found it so interesting.
Ah, good. Well, spread the word. It's significant.
It is. It's very significant. So the book dives into contemporary culture when it comes to gingerism and the movement against bullying, which is very powerful. Do you think that we're moving in the right direction when it comes to anti-bullying against redheads?
I think we're certainly making strides towards a better place to be where bullying of redheads is concerned. It's depressing when you read that even Prince William or Ed Sheeran were bullied as children. But of course, when you look at them now as adults, not Prince William, sorry, Prince Harry, what am I talking about? Prince Harry and Ed Sheeran were bullied as children, particularly. I mean, you're a member of the royal family, for God's sake. If that doesn't make you safe against bullying, what the heck
so
will?
True. Wow.
But it's something which, they're articulate about. Redheads generally are becoming much more vocal about. And, of course, there is an enormous anti-ginger bullying movement in the UK. I hope that is going to carry on flowing through into the sort of the population at large, because it does seem to me sometimes that big picture, there's been a bit of a retrograde step in the way the world regards bullying at the moment, and it seems to be getting away with more than it used to be able to get away with, and to be regarded as almost normal behavior, and that is not good for anyone, whatever their hair color might be.
Yeah, we did. I know that you're from London, but you split your time between New York and London. Do you feel like you're treated differently in London and New York with your red hair?
I don't myself, but I've spoken to a great many American redheads. And I'm actually sitting in Brooklyn talking to you at the moment. We kind of swap places if you were in London last month. But my partner is American, so I'm over in the States very often. And a lot of Americans are absolutely astonished and really quite appalled at the fact that you would be bullied in the UK simply because of a difference of hair color. But then this is how bullying and discrimination have always worked. They're always motivated by being scared of something that's different to you. So, it's all on a sort of continuum of human behavior, really.
I know. It really, that's so true. So now when it comes to how redheads are perceived and portrayed in our culture, do you think that there's a difference between redhead men and redhead women being portrayed?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Yeah. absolutely. Because if you're a redheaded woman, you're regarded as being exotic and sexy and empowered by your sexiness in some way. And if you're that exactly the opposite is true, that your red hair singles you out, first of all. The pale skin that so often comes with red hair doesn't suggest the sort of manly, virile qualities that we're supposed to esteem in men, whereas in women it suggests that you're somehow special, you're different, you're, everything that works well for women with red hair does exactly the opposite job if you're a bloke with red hair, which is very, very silly. But I do think that is changing. And there are now, there are actors, for example, Benedict Cumberbatch, Damian Lewis,
yes,
who can take
Love
their
them.
place amongst, the Hollywood stars. And their red hair has become something that they're noted for and celebrated for.
Exactly. It's
like Prince Harry. I think he's done a great justice for redhead men.
Do you
he
think?
loves his hair.
Do you think Archie's a redhead?
Oh, we all hope so. We've got our fingers crossed. I put up a post on my my Facebook page recently of this lovely christening photo of Archie and his parents, and it's very difficult to tell because he is still a teeny weeny baby, and teeny weeny babies do not have a great deal of hair. But we know that Harry can only pass on the red hair gene because that's all he's got, red hair being a recessive gene.
Right.
So it's going to very, very much depend on what the genetic background is to Meghan's family.
Right, because her dad, I think, is a redhead. I know. We zoom up, and any photos they share on social media, we're like, does he have red hair?
He does look like he has redhead eyebrows, though. Like the eyebrows usually tell you, and they're blonde, very light.
Oh, we're going to need to zoom in on that photograph and examine Archie's eyebrows. This is obviously going to be the only way to settle the question.
That's what I think when I look at him. I'm like, he looks like a redhead. And then Stephanie saw a picture of Meghan putting on sunscreen, and she's like, well, he must be a redhead.
Yeah, there was a sunscreen in the background. Yeah, I know. And then a lot of people were saying, oh, it's too early to apply sunscreen on a baby at his age, but yet.
Oh, I don't think it ever is. I don't think it ever is.
I didn't think so either.
When I was tiny, my mum left me in the garden in my pram because she was so tired of people telling her baby was so pale that her baby must be ill. And I ended up with second-degree burns on my knees.
Oh.
And I wouldn't have been much bigger than Archie was now. So it's never too early. No way.
Yeah, we think so too. So in the book, you call your red hair, which we loved, the single most significant characteristic of your life. Have you always identified strongly with being a redhead?
Because you were the only redhead in your family, right?
I was. I'm the only redhead in my family in living memory. My brother has 6 children, and I've told him he's not allowed to stop until he produces another redhead. And fingers crossed.
Yeah. So did you ever trace?
My niece has a. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, have you traced it on your both side of your mom and your dad to find out who was a redhead?
There's a bit of a mystery there. When I was tiny, I was told my dad had Scottish blood and my mum had Irish blood, and that must be where my red hair came from. And then as part of my research into writing Red, I had my genome tested. And it turned out I have a scrap of Scottish or Irish blood in me.
Really? Isn't that funny?
I don't know where that came from.
Oh my God!
Apparently, I'm 1/3 Norwegian. I mean, this sort of thing is very rough, but, 1/3 Norwegian, so, Viking. 1/3 north of England, which is probably also Viking. And 1/3 European, centered kind of around Switzerland, which is completely mystifying. But, this is the fascinating thing about genetics. It's always bringing you up against some kind of truth about yourself that you hadn't anticipated. So where my own red hair came from is, as much of a mystery in terms of which of my ancestors was responsible as it ever has been. But I meant what I wrote in the book. It has been the single most significant characteristic of my life. I have a redhead personality. Whether that's nature or nurture, I don't know, but it's definitely there. I was brought up to believe that being a redhead and being different to people around you was a good thing. I think parents have an enormous role to play here.
They do, yeah.
If you bring your redheaded kid up to think being a redhead is different, you're doing a wonderful thing for them, because you're not only making them feel proud of themselves, but you're making them accepting and interested of other people too.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I know parents have such a big
role in their kids.
They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason we have confidence is because of our parents. It's just, I feel like it passes down. So that's really important.
It really is. And I know this is really...
Well, you two do such an amazing job. I mean, all of the practical help and advice and the wonderful, wonderful pointers as to which lipstick, mascara, shampoo, suntan cream we should all be using, just to have, this is another strand in the community of redheads worldwide. It's just fantastic. So more power to your arm, girls. Seriously.
Oh, thank you so much. What do you have planned in the future for? I hate to say like 2020. It feels like this year's flying by. But are you working on any other pieces?
I am, yes. I just published another book, not on redheads this time. It's called The Animal's Companion. And it's a history of our activities, our human activity as pet owners from 26,000 years ago right up to the present day.
Oh, wow.
I'm also...
We have dogs of our own that we're dog moms.
Oh, well, girl, I have to send me your address and I will send you a copy of this book, because I think you would really enjoy it.
Yeah, we love anything with dogs.
Good for you. I'm really pleased to hear that. And I'm also working on a couple of children's books. The first one of those is going to be out in spring of next year. And I'm currently sitting here in Brooklyn in this very hot apartment. This is not redhead weather in Brooklyn currently. And I'm working on the final draft for an historical thriller.
That's fascinating.
Wow. Well, we are big fans of yours, and we're so happy that you created, it's really the first history book for redheads. The book.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. So that's just really awesome. I feel like when you're the first of anything, I feel like there probably will be some people behind you now citing you because it's so awesome and so well done.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a wonderful journey for me to discover this redhead community as I wrote the book and as I've talked about the book. And I really have noticed while I'm over in the States, the idea of the redhead look, if two redheads see each other, they always give each other a little smile. Yeah. That really happens everywhere you go.
It does.
It's terrific.
I know. We love it too. Well, it was so great to have you on and to meet you. And so we hope we keep in contact, definitely on social media.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Great to speak with you two as well.
Likewise.
Thank you so much, Jacky.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Guess what, redheads? The H2 Bar Box is now offering a deluxe version of the Beauty Box sent out 4 times a year in addition to the monthly box. You now have 2 options for enjoying the Beauty subscription box for redheads. The monthly box is worth $80 plus, and the deluxe quarterly box is worth $250 plus.
Each and every product is redhead friendly approved. Head to h2barbox.com to subscribe and use code podcast to receive 20% off. So some interesting facts we found out about her, and a lot of these facts can be found on howtobearedhead.com.
Yeah.
But that redheads carry more vitamin D.
I know.
And so back then, we were talking about Queen Elizabeth and during that time, and it was really an advantage for a lot of people who lived in places with no sunlight, because the more vitamin D that they had naturally in their body, they were able to fight off diseases. And that's really, really awesome. So basically, we have an article on How to Be a Redhead about how redheads can soak up more vitamin D, and basically they just have more. So she talked about the pH of the skin, which is also really cool because they say that redheads have a different scent, which we also have a post about.
Yeah, so many powerful things. And I think in her book, again, so many just powerful statements and things to learn about our redhead gene and how we're made. And again, going back to how unique we are and how rare we are.
So rare, and it's so cool. So definitely pick up her book. We'll have the Amazon link in the podcast notes so you can pick it up. It'll probably be a great summer, fall read.
Definitely.
And just to be able to read about
where we came from.
Yeah, where Redheads came from. It's so interesting. And she's done a lot of great work, and definitely we'll put her social media so you can connect with her on social media too. So
yeah, want to help us spread the news and the word about the How to Be a Redhead brand and this podcast? Please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends, redheads, and everyone else to subscribe. You can listen to this podcast directly on howtobearedhead.com, on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to look at the podcast notes to find links with products mentioned and everything we talked about with Jacky, and so much more. Rock it like a redhead.